place to regulate them. And also what the judge said is we look at this as you policing them on what possibly can happen, not policing them on what actually happened. Because FinCEN states that this whole Corporate Transparency Act is really to help with money laundering, anti-terrorism, they're stating that you're assuming that every business that you're trying to police may be involved in those activities, and that's not the case. And an assumption is not strong enough to roll out this type of legislation, let alone they just don't have the vested power under interstate commerce. And the NFIB, the big plaintiff that helped all of us in this, actually is serving 300,000 members, 300,000 businesses. And because they are serving 300,000 businesses, it's a national, when the judge made its ruling, it applied nationally. And because it applied nationally, it helped all of us in every state. Are there any questions for those who may have businesses that are confused about this particular legislation or confused about the ruling? I guess the main thing you want to hear, though, if you have a business, do you have to report? No, you don't. You don't have to report by January 2025, that deadline. You don't have to report, and you will not be fined because there is an injunctive relief that was put on FinCEN dealing with the CTA. If there are any questions, let me know. But I try to give it in a very concise, without covering all the legalese, try to give it in a very concise manner and really just get right to the point, which is people just want to know, do I have to report? But I will say this, as they appeal this, and I'm sure they will, when they appeal it, if they win on appeal and you didn't file by the deadline, it will not be retroactive. You won't go back and they won't go back and say, well, we won now and we had this particular deadline, you should have filed. That's not, the court ruling says no. The stay is put on here. There will be no type of irreparable harm that could be done to those who didn't file. And then if they do win, then at that time they can then state when the new deadline is. And they can obviously state what the penalties are if you do not file at that particular time. But for right now, you do not have to file. That injunctive relief applies to all business entities that FinCEN listed nationwide. Are there any questions? Hey, Neil. I hope all is well. All right, so if there are no questions, hopefully that helps you. Again, I'm here to try to help us. We a lot of times get lost in the sauce. We do not know what's going on. And I personally am happy that this court ruling did come down because I don't think a lot of people would have realized they've been paying $500 a day. As of January 1, 2025, if you did not report, your fine would have started, and it would have been $500 per day that you do not comply. Not to mention, if there's errors and you don't fix those errors, there's going to be penalties for that. If you do not report correctly, there was going to be penalties for that. Filling out the beneficial ownership information report is not hard at all, but knowing what to fill out could be tricky. And that's where a lot of people would have gotten caught up. If you are a solopreneur, it may have been a little easier, right? Because you kind of know it's just you and you can fill that out. But once ownership goes 2 or more people, then that's what would have become more and more trickier. Not to mention if you have board of directors, it would become very, very tricky. And I have consulted so many individuals who didn't even realize that certain partners or individuals in their companies that hold senior positions, the CEO or whatever else, you are a beneficial owner. If an individual owned 25% or more in a company, they're a beneficial owner. So those were two ways that people were beneficial owners, and other companies that were tied to each other was owning. So there was information that was needed to be reported on those companies and those individuals, very personal information and business information. Again, right now is adjunctive relief, but if they do win on appeal, we're still back at square one. So it will be very, very, very important for you to stay in the loop on this, especially if you own a company or you know someone who have registered a company in the U.S. All right, so that is all that I wanted to cover, just to make sure that we understand what's going on. And right now, you can pause if you did not file. And if you did file, well, your information is already out there, and maybe if they find it unconstitutional, they will force them to get rid of that information. But we know how the government works. How do you know if they got rid of it? But yep, that is all. So you all have a good night. I just wanted to make sure I bring you that information. Good night.